Check out FlipsideGaming.com for all your gaming needs. Use the promo code HEROES to save 10% on all orders over $10 and support the channel at the same time. Hey there, it's John from Heroes and Legends, and welcome to another edition of the Magic the Gathering Market Watch. It is Ixalan release weekend. I hope everyone gets a chance to go out to their LGS, play with this new set. It's a lot of fun. I've been enjoying it. But today we're going to look at the market. A quick word about the video. We're not going to look yet at the singles for Ixalan itself, just because they're going to be really turbulent this weekend as packs are being opened, and of course we're going to start seeing the first tournament results. But I will do a follow-up market watch early this coming week where we just look at Ixalan. But for today, the card values you're going to see when we talk about Standard are going to be cards that already existed in Standard. A lot of speculation right now as to what decks and what cards are going to be popular in the new meta. That's what you're going to see. As always, we'll also check in with some Commander cards, Modern and Legacy cards as well. Now, quickly before we get started, if you check out the description below, you'll find a few ways to help support us here at the channel and what we do. You'll find our Patreon page linked below. You'll find some Amazon product links. If you make any purchases on Amazon, once you go through those links, really no matter what it is, we'll get a small percentage. And also, Flipside Gaming has provided a promo code for our viewers, which is pretty awesome. You can pick up Ixalan there, get a little bit of a discount, which is nice, or even pre-order some Iconic Masters. So, with that being said, let's get into the cards for today. And we start off, as we always do, with the top 5 Standard cards that have lost value this week. You're going to see a number of cards from Hour of Devastation on the list today, which stands to reason. We're getting to the point where a lot of those cards have been open now, and they're pretty heavy in circulation, especially the rares. But we're also in a very speculative time period. At any given time, a deck with one of these cards or more of these cards could do well, and you could see some drastic changes in the market. So keep that in mind as we go through Standard today. Number 5, Ramonap Excavator, down 18 cents to 324. So this is a card that is seeing at least a tad bit of play in Modern as well as Legacy, and I'd like to see it do something at some point in Standard. I guess we'll kind of have to wait and see what happens there, but at least for right now, it is declining a little bit. And again, this is one of those rares from Hour of Devastation. There's a lot of copies floating around out there. Number 4, Champion of Wits, down 19 cents to 358. Now, this card started off pretty strong in the last Standard meta, started to fall off, though, relatively quickly as the meta started to solidify, but I still think it's a good card with raw power behind it. I mean, it did see play in things like God Pharaoh's Gift decks, saw play in some control decks early on, and has potential, all the potential in the world, really, to see play again in the future. And that's why the card is still valued at 358 right now. Like, that's pretty expensive for an Hour of Devastation rare, quite honestly, but at least for this week, it is ticking down a little bit. Number 3, Tezzeret Master of Metal, down 22 cents to 451. Now, this is the Tezzeret that you'll find in the Planeswalker deck for Aether Revolt, not in the actual booster packs. More on that one in just a few minutes. But this is still a fine casual card, good for Commander decks with some artifact themes behind them. And it's ticking down a little bit this week. Not too surprising, though. Even though you can't find these in booster packs, they do print a lot of these Planeswalker decks. They go out to the big box stores and such. So it's hard for these things to maintain value. So eventually, you may see this card bottom out and then finally begin to tick up, but I think that'll be a ways down the road. Number 2, Nicol Bolas God Pharaoh, down 36 cents to 1585. So this card saw a little bit of Standard play, especially early on in the meta, but you have to adjust expectations here. This is not a card you see 4 of in a deck. This is like a 1 of or 2 of, and I don't really think that's going to change during its whole lifetime in Standard. I think this card will always hang around in some capacity. It just won't be in high quantities, and that's okay. I think that's the role of this card. But again, this is ticking down this week. Maybe not surprising being from Hour of Devastation. The market's just getting really saturated right now with that particular set. So, stands to reason this card will probably continue to tick down a little more over the next few weeks. Even if it does see some play in Standard, it's still at a pretty strong price point. Number 1, Chandra Torch of Defiance, down 73 cents to 36.70. So she's down a little bit this week. Chandra was a force in the previous meta. She's going to be a force in the new meta too, maybe even more so considering the meta is a lot narrower with all the sets rotating out of it. And we're already seeing her show up in some of the Grilled Dinosaur deck lists, so she's not going anywhere. Not to mention the Modern play she sees in Titan Shift and even some Legacy plays sometimes in like big red decks. She has definitely cemented a foothold in a number of formats, so she will maintain value. value. Question is, can she maintain this value? And the problem is, she was just printed a lot. I mean, Kaladesh had a high print run. There's a lot of copies of her out there. In the long run, that's going to chip away at the value. She's going to steadily decline over time. She will have those weeks where she spikes back up because of performances in different tournaments, especially the Pro Tour, maybe down the road. But expect her to eventually get down to maybe a more fair price of around the $25 mark. It might just take some time. All right, let's move on to the cards in Standard that have gained value this week. A lot of speculation here, and I do warn you, you got to be careful about these cards. This weekend will start to tell us a little bit about the meta, especially the next few weeks. We're going to learn a lot about the meta. But right now, these are the cards that people think are going to be strong. Number 5, Samut the Tested, up 87 cents to 485, and she is currently being tested in some Gruul dinosaur decks to see how she does. And if she does well, she could potentially grow a little bit here. Again, Hour of Devastation cards, so the market's a little saturated, but because nobody really cared about her until now, there might be a little bit of a scramble to get her if she does well this weekend and over the course of the next couple weekends. So this is a card you definitely want to keep an eye on. Number 4, Metallic Mimic, up $1.05 to $9. Probably not a huge surprise here. Obviously, we're about to get a set entering Standard that's all about Tribal. This card has shown that it's powerful enough to see Tribal play even in the previous meta with zombies. So why not in this meta with pirates, dinosaurs, or whatever? So no surprise here. And I do think this card will see some play and find its foothold in this new meta as well, especially considering, again, how narrow it is. And beyond that, this card is great for Tribal Commander, and there's been a lot of attention on that recently due to the Commander 2017 decks. Number 3, getting into the trials, up $1.24 to $18.55. So can it happen with the rules change? Can we get Gideon Tribal and Standard? Some people even have been trying to make it work in Modern. I don't know about that. But could it happen? I don't know. I think this one's a long shot. I'll be honest. I do think, especially considering some of the power level that I see behind these dinosaur decks already and such, I don't know how realistic it's going to be. So a lot of Gideon's value is going to hinge on what happens again over the next few weeks. Now, aside from that, though, I do want to point out this card's pretty good in some Modern Azorius control decks, so it does have a home there, if nothing else, but that's not enough for it to maintain this kind of value. Coming in number 2, I told you we'd see him, Tezzeret this Gamer, of $5.54 to $8.99. Now, this card started to increase last week. I think this was number 5 on our list last Saturday, if I'm not mistaken. And here we are at number 2. It's seen a nice little spike, and that's because of its interaction with treasure tokens. So this could maybe fit into a treasure deck if someone's trying to brew that, but it could also just be a supplemental part of a pirate deck that's using treasures as well. It's very possible. So I do think Tezzeret will show up this weekend, and some of our questions may be answered. And coming in at number 1, the Scarab God, up $6.96 to $30.80. Now, that's pretty high. This is a pretty big spike. A lot of speculation around this card, and rightfully so. There's a raw power behind it. It's in the right colors. Grixis colors, Dimir colors, I think, could be powerful in the upcoming formats. We're going to have to wait and see how that pans out. But at least for right now, this is strong speculation, and a $30 price point on an Hour of Devastation card, even if it's a good card, even if it's a mythic, makes me a little bit nervous. This will definitely see some snapback. Even if it does well, it's going to see some snapback because this price point is just really high. We'll have to, again, see what happens this weekend, next couple weekends with this card. But again, I do think it's powerful enough to definitely see play, and it's also a fantastic Commander card. There's a lot of Commander attention on this card, too. All right, let's move on to Modern. We're going to talk about the cards that lost value this week. We're going to see a couple cards that are going to be reprinted in November in Iconic Masters. That's not really surprising. We're also seeing some snapback from some cards that recently spiked. Number 5, Horizon Canopy, down to $1.59 this week to $75.07. Of course, this will be coming out as a rare in Iconic Masters on November 17th, and it has been steadily dropping since we found that out a few weeks ago. So the thing with Horizon Canopy, you can find these cheaper if you look around. There's going to be a lot of sellers that are going to get nervous and start undercutting each other because they know November 17th is looming around the corner. They don't want to get stuck with these at a price point that they can't get rid of them, basically. So you're going to find them starting to decline fast. As a matter of fact, look around. You can find these probably much cheaper than $75. Number 4, same story here, Mishra's Bauble, even more so with this one though, down $1.86 to $18.05. Now, this is being reprinted as an uncommon, so this thing is going to crash, and you can find sellers that are already panicking about this one and trying to get rid of them cheap, a lot cheaper than $18. So again, look around for cards like this, shop around a little bit if you're in the market to pick them up, but again, this is going to have a really bad couple months. Once this thing hits as an uncommon, this thing is going to go down to like rock bottom value. Number 3, Vegvine, down 2.11 this week to $25.99. This card has seen a few spikes over the course of the last few weeks due to different decks that it was showing up in. Most recently, Saffron Olive featured it a couple weeks back, and we saw a nice little spike last week due to that fact. Just snapping back now. Number 2, Prismatic Omen, down $2.15 to $25.89. Now, this is down a little bit this week because of a snapback. It has been increasing relatively steadily over the last couple months. But I will say, this card is one you want to watch if you don't have copies of it. I hope we get a reprint in Masters 25, but who knows if that's the case or not. Great commander card and casual card. It has seen modern play as well. And it is a Shadowmoor rare, and those are hard to get sometimes, hard to find. Shadowmoor and some of the sets around that time period had a lower print run due to a little less enthusiasm about the game. Less cards were open, hence less cards were printed. So sometimes these tend to jump. Number 1, Tarmogoyf for Modern Masters 2017, down $2.30 to $70.99. So we've been talking about this one over the last few weeks. Nothing too new to say about it. Goyf's been seeing less play, percentage of field-wise in Modern as well as Legacy as metas have changed. Card's powerful. It could always bounce back at any time in a deck, so keep that in mind. But all versions of Goyf have been steadily falling. Even the unsinkable Future Sight version has gone down a little bit. So if you want the cheapest version, this is it here, and you can probably find it actually cheaper than this if you look around, because these have again been on the decline. Now this is the cheapest version of the card, but arguably not the worst version of the card as far as value goes long term. The Modern Masters 2015 version, I would avoid that one, especially if I'm purchasing online, because they had a lot of print defects in that set, and this is just a safer pickup, especially if you can't see the card firsthand, especially for foils too. I will mention that. We got some bad foils sometimes in Modern Masters 2015. So yeah, if you're in the market for Goyf, this could be a inexpensive quote-unquote version of the card that you may want to think about picking up at some point, but I do think this will continue to tick down more. All right, let's move on to modern cards that have gained value this week, and we're going to see hodgepodge of different things here. Number 5, Crucible of Worlds. This is up $1.30 this week to $66.52, the 5th Dawn version. Now, this card, of course, is not in Iconic Masters. We know that. Kind of hoping it would show up there. I was a little surprised, actually, that it didn't in some way. Maybe Masters 25. I'm really kind of banking on that. I feel like it almost has to be there. But it is going up this week, even though there is some speculation it could show up in Masters 25. It's still a little ways away. That'll be March, so the card is ticking up. Number 4, Dark Confidant from Ravnica, up $1.54 to $51.33. So generally, these Dark Confidants have been dropping, especially the Modern Masters ones. They continue to see play in Modern, but percentage of field is down a little bit recently as people are shifting more from like the Jund style decks to like the Death Shadow decks that are a little different. So we saw some softness with these cards. I think this one got to the point where people felt like, you know what, it's a little cheaper now and it's the original one with the original artwork. I'm just going to go ahead and pick it up. And you're seeing a little bit of a spike this week. Number 3, Scalding Tarn from Zendikar, up $1.73 to $61.72. Well, guess what? The Modern Masters 2017 sale is over. Now, the reprints of the fetch lands for Modern Masters 2017 did help price points quite a bit, actually. This card at one point was like a $90 card. So even though it's been going up over the last few months, still around $60. I mean, it's still a lot cheaper than it was, but it's still kind of expensive too. And a lot of players thought that the reprints were going to help the market value go down even further than they did. Some people waited a little too long and they started creeping up. Yeah, unfortunately, at this point, these cards are going to continue to tick up, and really there's no reprint in sight. I mean, we could get lucky and get them again in Masters 25 or something, but I'd be very surprised if that happened considering we just got them in Modern Masters 2017. Coming in number 2, Goryo's Vengeance, up $2.03 this week to $43.52. Now, this card saw a little bit of a decline last week, so this is just a bounce back week for the card. I think $40 is probably a fair price for it. It's seeing a little less play than it was seeing in recent months in Modern, but at the same time, the power levels there could bounce back at any time. It could potentially get a reprint in Masters 25. This card has yet to see a reprint, so I wouldn't be shocked if it showed up there. Coming in at number 1, Liliana of the Veil from Innistrad, up $251 to $80. So yeah, I guess that Modern Masters 2017 sale is over, although with her being mythic, it didn't really help that much. She went down a little bit for a while, but the price for that particular card still stayed pretty high. Even the Modern Masters 2017 version was never really cheap. So she's ticking up again. Why is that? A couple of reasons. First off, yeah, she still sees tons of play. Modern, Legacy. She shows up in Death Shadow decks, even if it's just a one of. It's a very popular deck, so that's not going to hurt things. But especially this week, there's a spotlight on her because Saffron Olive featured a deck on MTG Goldfish that was a Liliana tribal deck. And of course, it was not a budget deck, I'll warn you if you're going to check it out. There were 4 of these in it, so it's a little expensive. But it seemed like a fun deck, and with that extra attention, guess what? She's going to go up this week. I expect her to snap back a little bit next week, though. All right, let's move on to the cards in Legacy that have lost value this week. So I will say about Legacy generally before we get into the cards that it looks like the buyouts are maybe cooling off a little bit. There was a lot of craziness going on in the format, but I do think that maybe the attention is turning to Standard now, at least temporarily. So we'll kind of see what things look like here. Coming in at number 5, Plateau from Unlimited. Just normal stabilization this week, down 1346 to 174.41. Coming in number 4, Planar Gate, down 1362 to 67.50. Now, this card has been spiking over the last few months. I don't know if it was actually a strategic buyout or just extra attention on the card. A lot of people are looking at this one for a number of reasons. It's a Legends card that's hard to find. It's on the reserve list. And it has some implications potentially in Commander, especially when people are thinking about Commander 2017 tribal decks, as well as some of the more spiky 1v1 blue decks that try to choke people out on resources. The fact of the matter is, there's better cards probably for both of those decks, so the increased attention may have been more hype than anything. And it looks like a lot of these cards are being reintroduced now into the market and the price point's starting to go down a little bit. But again, due to the rarity of this card, don't expect this to fall all that much and definitely expect it to rebound back up. Number 3, Gauntlet of Might from Unlimited, down 1766 this week to 216.47. This is a card that sat around the $200 mark for a really long time. It saw a unnatural spike recently, and it's starting to just creep back down to that $200 mark. Number 2, Argivian Archaeologist, down 1844 to 74.95. Another card that spiked recently. It was definitely a target of a buyout, and looks like some of these may be coming back to the market now. Number 1, Sword of the Ages, down 29.59 to 121. Another card that was bought out a few weeks back and has been steadily declining as the cards are reintroduced into the market. All right, let's move on to the cards that have gained value this week. Coming in at number 5, Elephant Graveyard, up 37.19 to 249.95. So this was a target of a buyout, started to come back into the market. We saw it steadily declining actually pretty quickly over the last few weeks, and now it's starting to find and establish its new price point. And that's what you're seeing here is just stabilization off of that most recent buyout. Number 4, The Tabernacle at Pendrell Val, up 38.02 to $1,410.04. This card usually sits around $1,200, so this feels like maybe a little bit of a high price point this week for it. Number 3, Word of Command from Unlimited, up 45.75 to 98.50. So this could be a buyout. It's probably a buyout, but it is a card that's actually pretty fun, even in formats like 93.94. Number 2, Guardian Beast, up $110 this week to $350. This is actually a good card, but it's also a very rare and sought after card, so put the two together and you got some attention on it. This looks like a buyout, though, to me. Number 1, Diamond Valley, from Arabian Nights, of course, up $1.19 to 24 cents to $428.99. Another card that has been really hot recently. This sat around $200 forever. This is obviously some market manipulation again with this card. All right, let's close things out with some notable cards that we did not talk about today. And there's a hodgepodge of different things here. Let's just jump in. First off, Rishadan Cutpurse, up 4 cents this week to 25 cents. It's a common, and it's from Arcadian Mass. It's a pirate. So you're probably wondering, well, why are we featuring this card? It's only gone up 4 cents. Percentage-wise, it's actually a pretty big increase, and there's a few pirates from Arcadian Mass we're going to look at on the list today. And these cards don't feel like they're strong enough for a legacy pirate deck or anything like that, so it definitely feels like there's maybe some interest from Commander players, perhaps just trying to round out that 100-card deck with some pirates, and they're going to Arcadian Mass to find them. And this card, as well as some of the other ones we're going to see on the list today, work well with the card that's coming out in Ixalan, Siren's Ruse. It's not a great combo, but it might be something people are just thinking about to supplement a true pirate strategy. Next we have Wheel of Fortune from Revised, up 61 cents to 104.51. Seems crazy for a revised spell, but regardless. Now, this card only went up 61 cents this week to week, but a week ago Friday, it actually saw a nice little spike that was due to a buyout that was orchestrated from a Facebook group. So just wanted to point it out. It's already starting to go down a little bit, so I do expect this to start to tick down more and more over the next few weeks. Scarwood Bandits up 250 this week to 399. So this is from the dark. It's a reserve list card. And this is obviously a buyout. Now, it's not a good card. The only thing going for it is the fact that it's on the reserve list. And if you look at the value that's this spike from the buyout resulted in, it's really not that high, $2.50. So if I decided I'm going to buy this card out just because it's on the reserve list and I buy all these copies of it, I spike it $2.50 and then I'm going to try to sell it back to the market. Did I make any money? Did I lose money? I guess is the question. It just feels kind of silly to me, some of these cards that are being targeted at this point. And here's the thing. By the time you pay for your shipping costs, your packaging costs, so on and so forth, $2.50 higher for the card, assuming you can find buyers, because it's not a very good card. I mean, it's really nothing. So, yes, there's high rollers out there that are going out and buying reserve list cards from Arabian Nights, Antiquities, Legends. Those are sets that had really, really low print runs. They're picking up these cards. They're creating unstable inflation when they pick them up, and they're selling them back really quick at the higher price point. And yeah, they're making money from it. And unfortunately, I don't think there's any way around that. But cards like this, what's happening is people see those high rollers and they don't have the capital, they don't have the credit, but they think they can do it with these other cards that are cheaper, and they're going to get burned. And this is something you don't want to get into. This is a business that you don't want to get into. I mean, you can get really burned too, even with some of these high roller cards if you're not careful. But cards like this is just kind of almost pointless from a financial point of view, I think. So hopefully to everybody listening, I guess the moral of the story is, don't just think because something's on the reserve list, it's going to make you all this money and that you can manipulate the market. It's just not going to work out most of the time. The fact of the matter is, print runs for the Dark, Fallen Empire, Ice Age, even though, yes, they have reserve list cards, some of them might even be good cards, there's so many copies out there, and it's not the same as when someone buys out a Diamond Valley or they buy out even something from Legends that's popular, right? So there's a big difference, and I think it's important to note that. Next we have Living Wish up 346 this week to 699. All these wishes have increased over the years. This one may be lagging behind a little bit, but it's a good card. It's definitely worth more than it was valued, and I think maybe some people picked up on that. Morphling from Urza Saga up 366 to 1249. Well, here's another buyout, and again, we spiked this card this week, 366, by buying it out. That's not really that impressive. And just goes to show you, even a good card like Morphling, and that's the thing, when people do these buyouts, a lot of them are people that probably used to play in the old days, and remember Morphling is a great card because it was a great standard card. Nowadays, it's not that great. It's still a fine card, good casual card, fine for Commander and such, but really buying this out, it is a reserve list card, but even so, buying this thing out, you're not getting all that out of it. $3.66 is all it spiked this week. Rashad and Footpad from Acadian Mass. Okay, this one's the uncommon from the cycle we're looking at here. We saw the common earlier. This one's up 427 to 464. So again, much like the card we saw earlier, it's not an amazing card or anything like that. But again, I do think people are just simply picking this up because it is a pirate and it can round out those commander decks. And it's interesting if nothing else. And here's the rare from the cycle, Rashad and Brigand, of 1306 to 1995. Now, these cards actually started going up back when the Pirates were being spoiled, even back to the leak. But this week, with the set being released, they saw some pretty significant increases. So you can see here, at least percentage-wise, all of them saw a significant increase. And our last card today, Taunus's Coffin from Antiquities, up 1640 this week to 114.73. I'd mentioned this card in previous videos. I don't really think this is an orchestrated buyout. I think this was just a card that was undervalued and people just started noticing it. So maybe it's a semi-buyout here and there, but I think for the most part, this is a card that was undervalued and is really starting to get to the point where it's probably more at a fair price, honestly. It'll probably snap back a little bit. I mean, it's increased a lot over the last few weeks. But don't expect this card to get much cheaper than it is now. All right, with that being said, those are the cards for today. So it's a pretty exciting week for the market. Like I said, we're going to come back early this coming week to look just at Ixalan. So if you're interested in Ixalan values, what happened after some packs were open this weekend and we saw some actual tournament play, definitely tune in. We will check in on what the format's doing and what those Ixalan cards specifically are doing. But until next time, hey, thanks for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe and have a great day. Hey, thanks for watching. This video is made possible by the generous support of viewers like you on Patreon. Check out the description below for links to our Patreon page as well as our Amazon affiliate store, where a small percentage of all sales will also help support the channel. Finally, if you haven't had a chance yet to subscribe, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any new videos on Heroes and Legends. Talk to you again soon, and have a great day.